Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Small Town Johnstown Podcast. I am your co-host Nick with my host
Jenny.
We're here today with the realtor that sold us our house and helped us find the house a great startup house that we can really get going, pre-set up, moving pretty much
So
ready.
we can live in comfortably.
Yeah, and have our pets and not have to worry about finances for other things. And his name is Brooks Lohr. Hello, Brooks. How you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Great, we're chilling.
Just trying to stay warm.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, this weather today is brutal.
Yes. You're welcome for coming on. So, speaking of the weather, how's realtoring been? What's that? How's state education? Now I'm joking. Realtoring been with the weather and this type of winter?
It's uniquely steady, even though our winter has been bad, and that causes people to not, be out as much or want to list house or want to move and pack up U-Hauls. But actually, we were looking at stats, and this January compared to last January, we actually had 32 more transactions and I think about 6.5 million more in volume. So, yeah, we're kind of complaining things are slow right now. Nobody's buying, but it's significantly busier than it was a year ago at this time.
So, what are a typical winter like for you for selling houses and stuff? Are a lot of people looking? Is it kind of when is the slow season for you?
Yeah, typically it's real estate's pretty seasonal, right? So you get everybody hears about the spring rush, and then so spring, summertime, and even into fall. A lot of people like to, play it off the school year. They don't want to pull their kids out of a certain school or move them in the stress. So you'll see a lot of activity when that school year kind of winds down through the summertime until school year kicks back up. But we have such a unique area where our houses are so cheap. So we do get a lot of out of town investors that are just always looking, right? Because they can buy a 3-bed, 1-bath house for $59,900 or $72,000.
Yeah.
And probably where they live, like New York or, Baltimore, you can't really buy that there.
Yeah.
That's going to cost, I mean, I don't know those markets, but, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for a 3-bed, 1-bath, 700 square foot condo or whatever.
Mm.
So that does keep our market, I would say, steady. Are these lower priced homes that are more affordable for everybody to buy, and especially attractive to investors. That kind of keeps that market steady through the winter times.
So how did you get started? I know we talked a little bit before we started recording about your education prior to becoming a realtor, but how does one get into it? How did you get into it? And I guess, are you happy where you're at right now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I went to grad school at West Virginia, got a job in Kentucky after that, and worked at a convention center for about a year and a half, I believe. And one of my buddies I met down there was on a newly formed real estate team. And he was like, hey, man, you got to, join this team, join this team, join this team. So I was looking at everything they were doing, and I thought, that looks pretty cool, right? They look like they have a good time. They make money. I'm gonna hang my hat with them. So got my license. Well, joined the team, and I initially started as an ISA, which is inside sales agent. So we would just hammer phones all day long. We had a CRM system. We would capture leads on Facebook and Google. So hammer phones, try and create business for our buyer agents at that time, set them up on appointments, and then did that for a year and a half or so, and then became an agent. And I'll say I am grateful for that opportunity because it made me really comfortable on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's like, oh, you always can talk to people. I'm a little bit of like an introvert. Like if I don't know people, I feel like they don't care about what I have to say, right?
Yeah.
So, if we go to some cocktail hour and stuff, I'm just kind of standing there looking around.
Sure.
All right, who wants to talk? See somebody I know and just kind of attach to their hip for the night.
Yeah.
But so it made me real comfortable on the phones, especially hearing no. Every no is closer to your next yes, right? That's what they say in sales. So did that, and then became a buyer agent, sold a couple homes, and then, I just missed home. Kentucky was about an 8-hour drive from Johnstown. You know, I grew up, went to Richland, went to IUP for undergrad, and then, you know, drove 8 hours. Well, then went to West Virginia, drove 8 hours away to Kentucky for about 2.5, 3 years. And all my buddies were back here, whether it was Johnstown or Pittsburgh. All my family's back here. You know, like we were talking about, grandparents moved back home from Florida. Aunt and uncle moved back home from Florida. So like everybody in my, you know, life was back in Johnstown. And so came back to Johnstown. And then when I was looking back in Johnstown, I wanted to stay in real estate. And I reached out to Bob Colvin. I work on his team now, Bob Colvin team at Remax Team Realtors. And just growing up, you know, all the Colvins went to Richland, so it was familiar to me. You know, the first thing I thought about in real estate in Johnstown was Colvins and Remax, right? That famous balloon that everybody recognizes. So talked to Bob, and then had a job lined up with him when I moved back home. Kind of the same role, doing a little bit of marketing stuff with them, help handling the incoming leads. Did that for 3 years or so, and then kind of hopped around to some other places as an independent agent. And then last April came back to Bob's team to be a realtor there, you know, and here we are.
So how long does it take to become a realtor in Johnstown, and how much does it cost? What's the process like? Do you have to pay a little bit? I know for certain certifications you have to pay to like certify your position.
Yeah, it's I believe, because I actually had somebody asking me about this recently, so I was looking into it. Since I got licensed in Kentucky, I forget because that was back in 2018, 2017, or whatever it was.
Sad to say how long
Actually,
ago
no,
that
it wasn't
was.
2018. Yeah, it was probably about 2016. But you need to take, I believe it's a 75-hour course, which you can take online, or I think they offer in-person classes. The cost of that ranges, you know, whether to find a website, find kind of how you want to be educated, and then it'll have a cost associated. So maybe $200, maybe $400. You know, go through that, pass that test, and then you got to go. I think the closest place to here is Greensburg, but you got to go sit in and take a test on the computer. And I believe there's like a 40-question state test and maybe a 40-question national test. So when I moved back to Pennsylvania, all I needed to do was pass the state portion of the real estate test because my national carried over. So basically, pass your test, and then you find a brokerage to hang your license with, and then you can start practicing real estate.
And 75 hours doesn't seem too bad. And for $200 of an investment to make a steady income for a career, it's not too bad.
Yeah, some people argue, which I argue too, the barrier to entry is a little low. You know, it doesn't, like appraisers or inspectors, for example, like you gotta be with an inspector for, you know, 200 hours or I know the appraiser process, I believe you have to be like an apprentice for a while before you can actually become an appraiser. I wish the real estate industry would adapt to something like that, where, hey, you got licensed, but in order for you to like go be full out on your own, you got to be under somebody's wing for
Yeah, a year or two.
a year, 15 transactions, 10, 30, whatever you want to call it. But because there's so many, every transaction is so different from the next, right? I mean, the most common are going to be like a land deal that's cash that closes in 2 weeks because you're not getting inspections, you're not getting appraisals. That's like the easiest transaction. But you get into deals where, you know, either financing's complicated or you get an FHA loan, you got to work out appraisal issues and things like that. Inspection issues pop up. People have, like, realtors have to know how to be able to handle that with their clients. So if you're inexperienced, that person might be getting bad advice from their realtor.
Yeah.
So I do think being under somebody for a little while could help our industry as a whole.
Well, I do know that you've recently had a new experience for you where maybe if you had some previous, you could have knew how to handle it maybe to get it done quicker with like a property line.
Oh yeah, so that's a good one.
I know you can't say.
Well, no, it was a house out in Culver, and we got under contract, I think on Halloween, and those people needed to find suitable housing, those sellers. So we gave them a little bit of time, and I think our initial closing date was, I don't, maybe December 17th, and they found suitable housing. And then right before Thanksgiving popped up, we find out that the neighbor was complaining about the
problem.
garage potentially being on his land, right? So instead of just allowing it, the neighbor ordered a survey to be done, and then obviously the home seller and that neighbor each had to get attorney representation. They filled out what's called an encroachment easement, which lives on with the deed of the home, and that's how we got that situated. But it caused a delay, it caused a month delay.
Yeah.
You know, my buyer was a school teacher. He wanted to move in over Christmas break. He was all excited. And every week I had to call him like, hey man, we don't have any updates. Hey man, we don't have any updates.
Yeah, that stinks.
My hands are kind of tied in that, but I don't want him buying that house without that, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want that becoming his problem.
You move in and then you just have angry neighbors
Yeah,
immediately.
you have angry neighbors, and then you go to sell, and he does the same thing to you. So, you know, for me protecting his best interest, I said, we got to get this handled before. And he was on the same page, right? He didn't want to purchase that house. So that was a learning experience for me, but now I know.
I'm just curious on why all of a sudden that neighbor cares about where the garage
Like,
is.
by the
property.
way, this garage is mine,
Yeah.
legally and technically.
Yeah, you know.
Not all the years before he lived there.
Yeah, I
just-
think it was built 21 years ago, right?
He was
And
decided to
I
be angry
believe
with
when the
it.
survey was done, it was 3 feet over. It was 0.004 acres that was encroaching. So I believe it was about 3 feet overhead on his property. So I'm not sure. Maybe they had a bad
Yeah.
head clashing, and this was just one little twist of the knife before he left.
Yeah. Leading into my next question, I mean, dealing with difficult neighbors to properties you're trying to sell, what would you say if you have a specific example of what the hardest part of the job is?
Honestly, I not so much like getting in contract and post closing. It's finding the business, right? There's so many realtors in our area. Everybody here knows a realtor, right? Everybody knows a realtor. So trying to stay in front of people and trying to get referral business from, you know, people you sold. Like, hey Nick, Jen, you guys know anybody buying a house this year? Please, you know, recommend them to me. It's just getting that initial business and getting in front of somebody to be able to service them, whether it's, you know, buying a house or selling a house. And that's what the HGTV shows don't show yet. And because everybody thinks it's glamorous to be a realtor, and nobody knows how hard it is to actually get clients, whether you're giving Zillow $1,000 a month or running a $500 a month Google campaign, or, you know, Facebook ads, whatever. You got to buy leads. You know, you don't have to. You can work your sphere, work the phones and things like that. A majority of folks will buy leads, and a lot of the time you spend a lot of money. You might get 30, 40 leads, and you might get one client out of that. So
Yeah.
I would say that is the single hardest part of being a realtor.
Do you think the market's oversaturated, or just like in Johnstown, the market's oversaturated?
I think after COVID, a lot of people thought getting into real estate was glamorous. So I think nationwide, it probably oversaturated a bit. But, and it's like the 80-20 rule, right? Like 20% of the people do 80% of the business. And you can look at our MLS statistics, and year over year over year over year, the same 10 names are in the top 10 year over year, right? So the people who have been successful are still successful, whether the market's up, whether the market's down. You know, that 20% doesn't move.
Because they just been here, they're in that spot for so long. People are just gonna go to them because they know consistency, and so I'm sure it's a very hard field for a newbie to really break into and do successfully.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of my business, you know, success early on was from my sphere of influence. That's what I call it, right? So your friends, your family, who they refer you to.
Yeah.
And I got a couple, you know, Zillow deals here and there, and I actually looked last year, like 10% of my business came from Zillow, about 40% came from my sphere or past clients, and then about 50% came from being on the team. So
Mhm.
that's a good, I feel like that's a good balance for me.
So how do you feel about Zillow? I know people complain about Zillow and how it's like kind of taking over the house market right now. I'm sure you get a lot of people like, hey, well, on Zillow it says this, and it's like, well, actually, I'm sure it can get a little bit
Yeah.
annoying. But how do you feel about Zillow?
Yeah, the biggest problem with Zillow is the Zestimate, right?
Yeah.
Because in our area, it's like no two houses are built the same, right? So Zillow's really good at saying, oh, there was a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot house that sold in Johnstown. Well, next door is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot house, so that sold for 100. This should sell for 100. Zillow doesn't know that that house had an updated bathroom and
Yeah.
vinyl flooring, and this house has ripped up carpet and holes in the drywall, right?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest issue with Zillow is the zest of it. Now it probably works great whenever you have like a Ryan home development and everything is built the exact same way and they have 10 houses in that neighborhood sold. So the 11th house is probably an average of those 10. It probably works well that way. But, to compare your house here to something else that's sold, it's going to be hard, right? Because, we've got kind of a slope backyard. We've got a detached garage. Basement is a little shorter than that, but Zillow doesn't know any of that, right?
Yeah.
Zillow just knows,
It's a
oh,
computer.
it's 0.4 acres or whatever,
Yeah.
So that's my gripe with Zillow. I mean, it's a great tool. A lot of realtors have had plenty of success, purchasing leads, and they're kind of changing the way they do business now. A lot of it's called Zillow Flex. A lot of those markets are Zillow's actually giving you the lead for free up front and then charging you, a 30, 35,
After you sell
40% referral fee back to them
Okay.
after they sell the house. So we haven't quite seen that here yet.
Yeah.
But again, with our margins, like my average sales price last year was 126,000, and I've sold a $9,000 lot in Portage and a $500,000 house in Westmont, right?
Yeah.
So my business is everywhere, but it's adding a 30% referral on.
That's almost half.
Yeah, it makes for some tight margins. So that's why hitting the phones and working your sphere of influence and relying on referrals from past clients and friends and family, that's the bread and butter of a realtor's business.
Our gripe I said we had with Zillow was it just didn't update the information quickly. Like it'll take some time to say under contract, and it'll be like it'll been sold, and Zillow won't say sold for like a month later.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, someone's taking our house.
Yeah,
Where's
that's
Zillow?
because it talks with our MLS. So anytime our MLS is updated, sites like Zillow and Realtor and things like that, I guess some people are using Redfin now.
Redfin, never heard of that.
But yeah, it'll take some time.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have your realtor set you up a search in the MLS because you can know instantly when a house is listed. And then for what we've seen the past few years, that urgency and being the first in and getting offers in can make or break you, like you guys, for example, right? We were the first person in this house. We made an aggressive offer. We made an aggressive deadline. And now you guys have been living here for what, 4 or 5 months
4 or
now?
5 months, yeah.
Yeah.
August, September.
Yeah, no, I guess, yeah.
And that was part of your learning curve too, of missing out on other opportunities as far as like, well, let's just offer this and see if they take it, or let's just offer this. And then you find a house that you really like.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, let's be aggressive and let's go get this house.
Yeah, we're tired of somebody else swooping in and offering 50% cash down. Well,
Right.
we don't have.
Yeah. Is that common, or has it always been common, or is it more common right now to have so many? I don't know if that's a lot, but just 2 missed deals, missed opportunities.
You saying like making offers, not getting accepted?
Yeah, like how often does that happen?
Yeah, it kind of just depends on the house. So we have I'll call it an inventory crisis around here, right? Like half the people are locked into 3% loans. They're not moving just to move. Right?
Yeah.
Half the people that own are aged 80, 70 and up, right? I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah.
I know
Rough
that's
numbers,
fat.
rough
numbers.
numbers.
Yeah. So they're not going anywhere, right? So, and we don't have any new development. We don't have any new build communities.
Yeah.
So anytime somebody sells a house, it's like, well, they got to go somewhere else. So you're not really gaining any inventory that way because they're scooping up inventory right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's caused our multiple offer situations like you guys experienced in the summer and fall market that we were trying to buy in. It's just a lack of inventory. I mean, when I started back here in Johnstown in, when did I move here? 2017. I think at one point there were, maybe 100 houses for sale in Westmont. And then if you look at Westmont right now, there's probably under 20 for sale, right? So that's 80 less opportunities for people to purchase a house than there was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So that's what's caused this. Everybody multiple offer, people waiving inspections, going above list price to get the house.
So why do you think there isn't more inventory being built? Why isn't a stoppage kind of on house building right now? Is it because like the material's expensive? Is it just kind of like the economy right now?
Well, there's never, I don't want to say there's never been, but there hasn't been too many newer developments, like, and I just keep using Ryan Home's example because they're, they're familiar with people. They build in Pittsburgh, they build everywhere, but they build in Pittsburgh and things like that. So it probably just comes down to them evaluating our area and our average household income and saying, can we make money if we, buy a 10-acre lot or a 100-acre lot and start subdividing it? And the answer to them is probably no, right? So I think that's part of the reason. Another reason is it doesn't seem like there may be any local, investors or that's willing to take that on either, probably for the same reasons. Yeah. So I would guess that's why.
See, I kind of like that though, because it makes every kind of house unique and not the same.
Yeah.
So that's that, because I'm sure they probably Ryan Homes. I'm sure they kind of built kind of like the same unit every time, or have like a general idea.
Yeah, they probably have like three. They build a new neighborhood. It has 3 or 4 different styles and 5 or 6 different faces on it, and then they just put them up. And then another neighborhood has 3 different styles. So,
Kinda, do you like this has this like own little touch? Each house is kind of different.
Yeah.
And I mean, heck, I showed a house last week that was built in I think 1877 or 1887. We've got some old.
Was that a castle? How's the wood still good?
It was. I'll tell you what, structurally it was pretty good, surprisingly. The worst part of it was the detached block garage. That had more signs of, wear and tear than the actual house itself.
Shows how down materials gone over the years since 1800s.
Yeah, people say that houses aren't built the same as they used to be. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on, home building per se. Never built a home. Fixed up, I can lay some laminate flooring and, install an outlet if you need me to. But
do more than I can do.
I was gonna say, we got some projects for you.
I got some friends.
We need some
really
stairs
good friends that have taught me some things along the way.
We need some stairs built.
Yeah. One of my coworkers helped me. We installed a gas line. We had it inspected, but installed a gas line, and so I was able to move from an electric stove to a gas stove whenever we bought our house, because our house has gas running to it. I hate cooking on electric. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
It's not. It's not. So
Our stove's kind of ghetto though. It's like slanted.
is it? So your eggs all run to one side. Yeah.
I put the oil on. I throw the chicken. The oil's just in the corner. I'm like,
Well, they should have legs on the bottom that you can.
I don't know.
Do you have a leveler?
Yeah, we have a leveler. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out which way it's slanting, and then twist the legs. Maybe you got to throw a piece of cardboard underneath.
I have. All those episodes of Home Improvement have not taught me much. Where did Tim Allen go wrong? I used to watch it all the time when I skipped school.
Yeah, I was never a Home Improvement.
You were never a Home Improvement?
No. I like Chip and Joanna, and my wife and I actually just started. We watched Selling Sunset on Netflix. It's L.A. real estate show.
Okay.
but one of the girls there, I don't know if you guys know Tarek and Christina from what is it, Flopper, Fixer Flop or whatever it is. Um, anyway, another HGTV show, but they started a new one that we've now
Nice.
started
Do you
watching.
take notes when you watch them?
No,
Those are some good
I
points.
told her, you know, they probably do really nice ones on the one they're filming.
Yeah.
Because they run businesses, right? And they
Uh-huh.
probably cut a couple corners on the ones that aren't on
TV.
TV. Yeah, yeah. So everything's always dramatic. Too, you know.
No granite count.
The granite didn't come in. What do we do now? Or, yeah. So no, I do not take notes. It's more for entertainment than it is.
I got you.
You know, sometimes I watch it and I'm like, man, I want to flip a house, and then I actually sit down and think about it and like, well, I don't have
Run the numbers.
I don't have a saw, I don't have a nail gun, I don't have any of this. So it's going to cost me $10,000 just to get the material
Yeah.
to work on the material.
Mhm.
So
Just you can't mess up because they got
yeah, measure
more.
twice, cut once, right?
Exactly.
So is that what a realtor does in their free time? Just watch like real estate TV shows?
No, I do it for the drama. I think Selling Sunset is, you know,
The
my
most
wife likes
dramatic
it.
shows is all
Yeah,
about
it's-
selling, buying, flipping houses.
He,
Yeah.
he probably understands it from a different level with the dramaticness. Like, oh, I know
It's
what that's like. Yeah,
different.
it's
Well,
different.
and it's funny, we were watching the new one last week, and I don't know if it was a foreclosure or just condemned or whatever, and it was listed at 750, and I looked at Sid and I was like, they're gonna offer 650 and they're gonna get countered and they're gonna settle at 710,000. And
All the
like
predictions are
the
all
next
good.
scene it popped up like, you got the house for 710,000. I was like,
Can you bet that on FanDuel?
yeah, that would be nice. I don't know if I would take my betting advice for anything. I pulled my funds out, 2 years ago and,
Brooks,
and
that's
haven't
what
looked
the
back.
realtor betting advice.
That'd be
How
fun.
much would this house sell for? Brooks nails on the dot.
I wish. I could probably get clients some more houses if I knew exactly. That's the thing back to multiple offers. At that point, it's out of my hands, right? I don't know what other people's motivations are
Mhm.
to pick the number that they're going to pick.
Yeah.
That's why at that point we've lost a little bit of negotiation skills because it's not a house that's been sitting on the market for 6 months and needs this or needs that. It's, hey, we've had this conversation. How high do you feel, like how comfortable do you feel
Mhm.
going that you're gonna wake up in the morning and you're gonna be happy that you got the house and not, and still be able to take your vacations or take your trips and things like that, and not wake up and be sad that, oh
Mhm.
my God, our lives have completely changed. Now we gotta,
Yeah.
eat rice and beans for the next 2
Noodles and
years.
noodles.
Yeah.
So there's that fine line of balance, and that's the conversations I try to have with folks because I wish I could shake a magic 8 ball up and
Mhm.
tell you what that number is going to be, and I can't, and no realtor can.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been experiencing here.
So, what's your best advice that you have for first-time home buyers that they might not know to ask?
Get pre-approved.
Yeah, obviously.
That's the first step. That is the first step before you start. It's nice to look online and like daydream of like, okay, you start to get an idea of what's out there, but you got to get pre-approved first.
Mhm.
It's the most important step because no seller's going to take your offer if you don't have an approval letter, right? Because
Yeah.
they don't know that you are
Serious.
serious or you can afford what you're telling them you can
Mhm.
afford, right? So that is the first most important step because there's also a bunch of different loan types as well, as far as conventional, FHA, VA. Those are the most common in our area. But a conventional loan process is quite significant, quite different than the FHA process, right? So FHA has some more, and VA has some more strict appraisal things that need to get ironed out prior to them issuing you the loan. Chipping paint, handrails, GFCI outlets, things like that. Where a conventional loan, most of the time, you just get the house, right?
Yeah.
If as long as it appraises at value. I mean, heck, there's even some. I've had a few deals last year where the buyer had such good credit and income and borrowing power and they were both, I believe, 20% down deals, but the bank just waived the appraisal. because
wow.
they felt comfortable and, saving that buyer $600, $700. Appraisals are going up.
Yeah.
So that's another $600, $700 off. But yeah, back to it. First time home buyer, any home buyer, get approved. That way you know what you can afford, what those payments look like, and what type of loan that you have.
So anything they should look while looking at houses that they should know about? Like what kind of details to look, like bad flooring?
Yeah, I was gonna
or-
ask that earlier because when we were looking at houses, especially the first house, because the first house we looked at was very nice, but it was our first house, so we didn't know what to look for. So, what would you suggest that people might not notice right away to look for in a house that's good or bad?
Yeah, I try and going through my showings, a lot of people like looking like the oohs and ahs stuff.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, it looks pretty, or oh, this is ugly, and that's about all the knowledge I
Right,
had
right.
prior.
And I always like looking at ceilings, looking at corners, looking at flooring, looking at trim work. How was this house finished? So yeah, a good realtor should be pointing those things out to you at showings. Looking at the roof, understanding the differences in a 3-tab shingle or a well, I'm calling it out and I can't even think of it. I forget what the other roof I'm trying to say is. But calling things like that out, foundation cracks, dampness in the basement, is it just coming from the hot water tank or does it look like it's seeping through the actual. So yeah, they should be looking at everything for a buyer, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that buyer is paying that realtor to provide a service for them,
Mhm.
and that realtor should be confident in explaining some things to that buyer, and that buyer should be confident in buying that house. So, just you know, I try and look at about every square inch of every house and
Yeah.
point out anything. And as you guys know, like I shoot it straight. I'm
Mhm.
pretty honest. I don't. I I don't know if this is bad or I probably talk more people out of houses. I never talk people into a house, right? I probably talk more people out of homes, um, just with some potential concerns or
Mhm.
value or hey, if we spend a little bit more, you could probably get this, or hey, in this price range, I would like to see this. So
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you're so much talking them out about it. I'll say you're so much saying like, hey, they might be overshooting for what this value of this house is for how much you're gonna need to put in to repair it.
yeah, that could be it. That
Yeah.
could be it.
Just
You
giving
know.
a realistic viewpoint
Or
of
if
the
you go
house.
into a house that's quote flipped and you see,
Patchy work.
patchy work, caulking that is just an inch thick
Mm.
running, tile that's been like unevenly set. That to me that just says, okay, if that's the surface level things, like what else? What else did they skip out on or not really know? What's behind this drywall? Because that's a lot of the time everybody wants. I want a newly renovated house. I want everything fixed, and then you go in, and some of the work's questionable, and then it's like, do you really want that house, or how about we buy this house with red shag carpet, and
Yeah.
then you just put your own, vinyl flooring in.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you know.
What's underneath?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna give you opportunity.
Jenny's still waking up.
Yeah, Jen's still waking up. She's like,
We got Saturday
Serious.
morning. I've been up since 7. Got the kiddo out of bed. Made my coffee.
okay, we can do that.
Watched a little bit of Miss Rachel.
you, who's that?
You know, Miss Rachel.
You don't know Miss
I
Rachel?
don't know Miss Rachel.
I didn't until I was a dad.
My fur babies don't watch Miss Rachel, okay?
Lots of dog TV. So, what does a typical day like for you in the life of a realtor?
No 2 days are the same. I can say that. I think most realtors will tell you that. No 2 days are the same. I try to get in the office anywhere between like 8:30 and 9:30, and I will say, especially coming back to the team atmosphere, I enjoy going to the office. I feel like I'm more productive at the office. Some people are more productive at home. I get that.
Yeah.
I like the office culture. I like, people are talking about real estate. They're talking about clients. They're talking about houses. It kind of, get you going. So, I mean, I try and not have morning appointments. I try and spend that time either following up or dealing with the deals that I currently have, reaching out to lenders, title companies, reviewing inspection reports, things like that. So I try to reserve the morning for that time. and then tried to schedule showings lunchtime, afternoon, evenings. And that's the other thing, you know, everybody's schedule's different, right? So from working with the guy who works 2 to 10, he might need a 10 a.m. showing.
Yeah.
So I got to do that, right? More traditional 9 to 5, like, well, we kind of looked whenever, right?
Yeah.
We were kind of looking
Whenever
whenever.
we can
Hey,
sneak
2
in.
o'clock. Let's go over
Sometimes
this
during
house.
lunch, we'll just
Yeah,
sneak out of work.
sometimes take
Yeah.
an extended lunch. But yeah, I mean, basically, no 2 days are the same. Try to get the office 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then the day kind of happens. And whether that's, you know, no showings that day, or whether that's, you know, yesterday I spent 10 to 12 showing 4 different houses from an out of town buyer, right?
Mhm.
So that was their best time to come in. That allows them to get home in time. So yeah, no 2 days the same, and but it's fun because it's fun because you don't know what to expect,
Yeah.
and you know your day can turn into getting home at 8 o'clock and then writing an offer and then sending it over and then sending a congrats text the next morning at 10 a.m.
I was about to say, do you have like a cutoff time where you stop showing houses or going out? Because I know we went kind of late sometimes. It's like 6, 7 o'clock. You're like, all right, I can come out. Real
Yeah,
quick.
no, I mean that's look, this is the career I signed up for, right? It's the job I do, so I have to be available when other people are available. And you know, some of the times it is, you know, after this podcast where it's a Saturday morning, I'm going to show a house at 12. I was texting a client this morning at 7:30. We got a showing set up for tomorrow morning at 9 before church. So it's just you kind of got to go
Yeah.
when they can go. Uh, my old company and my old team in Kentucky was really big on time blocking, and I've tried to carry that over into
Mhm.
my,
Mhm.
you know, career here. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. So I live by my Google Calendar, and especially having the kiddo, like my wife will put on, hey, you know, your mom's watching her this day, and it's like it's an event on my calendar, just so I know.
You know what's happening, where
Yeah.
you're gonna be.
We've had to do that ourselves.
We just got into the Google Calendar.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's like everybody should live by some type of digital calendar that you can access at any point in time. And
Mhm.
know, like you can schedule something 3 months out, and then it's the week of that, and you're like, oh, that's right, we have this tonight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't do paper notes. I don't do paper calendars. Everything is.
Oh, I feel like I like writing sometimes. I feel like you get more.
I'll write things down, like when I'm on the phone with a client, right? Like when you and I talked for the first time,
Yeah.
right? And you were kind of explaining what you wanted
Uh-huh.
and things like that. Like I write all that down, and then I try and get it into
Yeah.
my CRM, so that way I don't have a bunch of sticky notes laying all over my desk, and I can kind of track. Okay, Nick, they want this, they want
Mhm.
this, you know. So yeah, that's a day in the life. Try and time block, but able to meet clients at any point in time. I try to reserve Sundays as kind of my only day off, but
Mhm.
again, I understand the needs of a buyer, um, you know, that needs to meet on that day because maybe they work 6 days a week, maybe Sunday's their
Yeah.
only day off.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
Well, how do you balance your personal life and work life? Do you have a set amount of hours that you are working, or are you just kind of always on call, always on the clock?
pretty much always on call. That's the nice thing about being on a team is, you know, if I do go away for we like wife we do Christmas or Thanksgiving in Indianapolis, right? So there's always like 5 to 7 days that I'm just out of town.
Mhm.
So being on that team, I can rely on, you know, some of my team members to
Oh, yeah.
I was out of town um for Christmas, and one of my clients wanted to see a house in Wimber. Called my team member Denny, and he showed it for me.
Mhm.
They ended up liking it. I write the offer while I'm in Indianapolis, you know,
Yeah.
taking the advice I got from Denny, which I trust his word, you know.
Yeah.
He's a very good realtor. He's very experienced, very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot from Denny. So if he tells me something,
You listen.
I listen.
Yeah.
And they actually just closed on that house about 10 days ago.
Nice.
So that's the nice thing of having other people to rely on
Mhm.
while I'm away and being a part of this team. But yeah, not really a set hours or anything like that. Just kind of, I could get a Zillow lead or a Realtor lead or a Google lead, after we leave here, and gonna call them and, hey,
Yeah.
how can I help? So get you information on this house. You want to set up a time to go see it.
Yeah. So what's it like buying a house as a realtor? Do you get a realtor to help you buy a house, or you just gotta buy your own house?
Yeah, so I was actually the realtor for, my wife's and I house in Richland back in, I keep forgetting, I think it was November of 17 that we bought. It might have been November of 18, but and that's the thing, it's going by so fast.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna be like 7 years in the house already. And the average, I think everybody used to stay in their house 5 to 7 years. I think that's starting to creep up a little bit just with interest rates and cost of home ownership and things like that. Like I think people are staying in homes longer. But yeah, it's nice and I've only ever, bought one, right?
Yeah.
The house that I live in. I would like to potentially maybe get into investing in landlord down the road, but I've got some other things to take care of first. Pesky student loans and probably getting a bigger house. Like the house we bought, it's three bed, one bath Cape Cod, and
Mm.
got a good deal on it. And since we bought it, when we did, we're probably sitting on some decent equity. So whenever we go to buy our next house, we can use that equity.
The transfer over.
Yeah, pretty much as our down payment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, only have done one so far, and we actually looked at quite a few.
Yeah.
How many is quite a few?
Because I know Jenny was stressing when she said we looked at so many houses right
Well,
now.
because we're calling Brooks like every other day. Look at this house, and they're all trash. And I'm like, we just looked at 10 garbage houses.
She's like, we're wasting this time.
Yeah, it's the funny thing.
We're not buying an expensive enough house to take up this much of his
Like
time.
the worst, the thing I hate to hear most from people is, "Oh, I didn't want to bug you," and it's like, "Hey, that's my job. You're not bugging me. Like, if you see, please reach out because you're gonna buy a house, right? So don't feel like you're bugging me because I don't want you to buy it with somebody else.
Yeah.
So reach out, and this is why we look. Like how many places look nice online, and then
Yeah.
we get in, and it's completely different
Correct.
than what we thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I mean, no, there's not too many houses, right? I will say a good realtor can kind of assist if he's seen some houses and knowing what you want. It's, hey, I don't think that's really a fit for you guys based on what you want, based on
Yeah.
I got a client right now who I'm trying to. She sends me some houses, and I'm like, "Hey, you have two dogs. The backyard is a cliff. I don't think this is a good. Can we look anyway? All right, while you're in town, we can go look. We go look. Oh, I didn't realize that backyard was a cliff like that. I told you that.
There's you'd be surprised how many people lack common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, trying to prep buyers for houses that you're familiar with or guide them to houses based on, and there's a lot of the times too, people will tell you something
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll buy something else, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want a 3 bed, 1 bath in the city. And then they go buy a 1 bed, 2 bath in the country. We're
Ranch
like,
somewhere.
well, we were looking, downtown.
Yeah.
And now you got 2 acres in Davidsville. Like that's not what you told me you wanted.
Switched up real
Yeah.
fast.
So,
Well,
but again, you don't know until you look, and that's why it's important. If you feel like you're interested and you feel like it checks some boxes, let's go take a look.
Well, I feel like some people get impatient. I know when we were looking, I was getting real desperate. I was like, well, we don't really like this house, but let's just buy it.
Yeah.
And like, don't do that. Just wait. The
Yeah.
right house will come.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was thinking about it.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was getting real desperate.
Like,
soon.
let's just settle for this house.
Let's settle for this house.
It was awful, but we need a house.
Yeah, I never want people settling for a house. But again, I'm not the one living there. I'm not the one paying. And that's what I say too. Like, I'm not the one paying your mortgage. If
Yeah.
you're happy
I mean,
here,
you want to pay our mortgage.
who's
No.
no, you pay mine. No. If you're happy here, if you see yourself here, like, don't let me
Get in the way.
get in the way of
Influence,
that,
yeah.
right? But like we talked about earlier, like there could be a better option, a better opportunity out there for you. Like this house, for example, like it's even something as small as having a fence for you guys. Like that was really important.
Mhm.
And some of the houses we looked at didn't have fences
Yeah,
at
it was a
all.
great find.
It
For
was a
sure.
great fun.
So being a little bit patient, we were able to get to your fence. You don't have to deal with that. Now you can let the dogs,
Yeah.
outside freely and not have to worry about tying them up or,
Yeah.
them running away and things like that. Or go spend
Thousands of dollars for a
Awesome.
five,
fence.
$6,000, $7,000, maybe even more on getting a fence installed.
Mhm.
But you're never gonna find your perfect house. You just gotta know what you value more. Because like you said,
Our house is
basement's-
slowly falling apart.
our basement's a
fine.
little low, so I'm hitting my head sometimes.
Are you hitting your head?
Yeah, it's a
Yep.
big old.
We talked
uncle-
about that when we were down there.
I know.
You got the warning.
And it's like it's not like I'm just standing there. I'm fine. It's just that there's this one little thing of wood that they know people hit their head because they put little
I was going to say,
cushioning
did you
around.
put some like yellow?
No, it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it still there?
yeah, it's still there. I keep hitting my head there, but like I
Maybe,
can't get mad.
you should just put a helmet at the bottom of the steps.
Yeah.
Every time you get down,
Little football
Yeah.
pop
helmet.
the helmet on, and you'll be good to go.
So I have kind of a silly question. Have you seen Modern Family at all?
Nah.
Okay, so the dad is a realtor, Phil Dunphy.
Okay.
In one of the last episodes, he's showing how many houses you say, like 200 houses for
What?
Pepper, whatever
Yeah.
the character's name was. Have you had anyone like that like just keeps wanting to see houses, and then as it turns out, this character just kind of wanted to see them? Do you have anyone
Just
like
looky loo.
just really wants to be your friend and just keeps looking at like an excessive amount of houses?
I feel like I have one right now with one of my out of town buyers that were not to that extreme. But you'll work with somebody for a few months and then something happens in their situation where they don't,
Mhm.
they don't go through. Maybe they get a job in a different town. They no longer want to buy. Maybe they want to make where they're at work. So no, I haven't showed anybody 200 houses yet. I hope I don't. I hope I don't run into that. But
What's
No,
the most houses you think you've looked at?
with one client, let me go back.
There's only so many houses in Johnstown.
Yeah, that's the thing, because a lot of people base their searches off school districts too, right? So if you only want Westmont or you only want Forest Hills, like there's only so many options, not even a month, a year
Yeah.
in your specific price range too,
Yeah.
to get that house. But I don't know, probably I would say maybe like 20, 15, 20, not too
I
much.
feel like we were climbing up there though.
I think we're like
I
10.
didn't see. I didn't think you guys were
Yeah.
bad.
I feel like we
thought
looked at least 10.
I think
But
that
that's-
was
but
stressing.
that's
That's typical. I think
Yeah, I would say that's pretty typical. A lot of people, and that's what I told you, because the first house we met at,
Yeah.
you guys made an offer on.
Yeah.
I was like, this typically
Doesn't
doesn't happen. Like people don't really, because you always kind of want to know
That
what
one didn't
else.
have a fence.
What else is out
Yeah.
there? Yeah, that
Yeah.
one did not have a
Not
fence.
a fence.
But yeah, I would say probably like 7 to 15 is probably a common number for people to
look,
look at. Yeah,
So what's the farthest you'll travel to show somebody a house?
that's a good question. I typically try and cover, Cambria County, Somerset County. And I know like Somerset County reaches to the border of Maryland, right?
Yeah.
So you can get down there. 7 to 15, but again, everybody's a little different, right?
Mhm.
So
What is the farthest you'll travel? And
Oh,
do realtors have like turfs? Are you scared to go on some other realtor's turf if you travel too far?
that's a good question. I don't think realtors have turf like we talked about earlier. There's a million of them,
Mhm.
right? So it's hard to claim turf. Uh my MLS is Cambria Somerset Association of Realtors, so try and service all of Cambria and Somerset counties. Now you can get down there in Somerset County, right? I mean, it touches the Maryland border, so I've driven out past Galitzin before for a showing. Haven't really traveled too far west as far as, like the Greensburg or Latrobe area. Again, I don't really have buyers for those areas because I don't advertise there. I don't, like the people I know want to live in Johnstown or
Mhm.
Evansburg or,
Yeah.
Davidsville, Holsop or whatnot. So that's why that's the majority of the service area I cover. It's all client dependent too, of what, like I'm probably not going to drive an hour and a half to show a 1 acre parcel of land. Like it just doesn't make much sense to me, right? Um, and the further you get away, and this is what I always say too, it's like the further you get away from your service area, the less you're familiar with. So like if I get something in Altoona, I have no idea what the house values in Altoona are. Like I
Yeah.
really don't. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know if they're more comparable to Richland or if they're more comparable to Davidsville or if they're more comparable to Johnstown. Like I don't know what a good value or a bad value is in Altoona. So that's why it's not the lack of wanting to drive, right? Because that's what I signed up for to do. I was pop a podcast on drive. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to drive.
The Small Town Johnstown podcast?
Small Town Johnstown podcast. Yeah, try and learn a thing or two.
Mhm.
But it's just the lack of knowledge the further you get away from the area that you serve it.
So to wrap it up, one piece of advice that you have for maybe younger people who are under the impression that they can't buy a house or in this economy they'll be renting forever or whatever it is. Do you have anything to say to those people?
Yeah, I would say you do not need 20% down to purchase a house, which for some reason is still big. Like everybody thinks you need 20% down. And now 20% is helpful because that helps you avoid mortgage insurance. So that's probably why that number gets thrown around.
Yeah.
But I mean, and in March too, there's good programs out there that there's good grants, there's good money to help with, closing cost assistance or down payment assistance. I mean, you guys got,
Uh,
what was
Rocket Mortgage is like
you were with Rocket,
30% down.
Yeah.
2% down.
two
They did.
percent, and then they matched,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So again, right there, like you guys got a free 2%
Mm-hmm.
towards your loan. Now,
Grand
the
Crabs go.
great scheme, maybe they built that into your interest rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know how, because
Hmm.
they need to make money too, right?
Mhm.
So, but there are programs and people out there that can help you obtain home ownership. And that's why, a half hour ago, I spoke on the importance of getting pre approved
Yeah.
because no two pre approvals are the same. You might qualify for this grant or this loan or 100% financing. So that's my advice is get approved, find out what your options are. Don't be afraid to talk to a few different lenders.
Mhm.
You probably don't want all of them pulling your credit, but
Yeah.
talk to a few, explain your income, explain your debts, see what they have to offer for you. Because it like home ownership's not that far off for everybody. And we have very affordable housing for our area.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So that would be my advice. And save, because it never hurts to have more money.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard to save. Like,
It is.
even I mean, I'm 34. I'm turning 34 in a week. It's like I wish I could have more saved up right now,
Mhm.
but you got kid, you got daycare. This pops up, that pops up, and like life just kind of takes its course.
Food is
So I know it's
$100 for 3 things.
yeah, $200 Aldi trip, like.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard. It's easier said than done, but it is obtainable. And you just have to be diligent and get a plan in place and talk to a realtor.
All right. Thank you. Anybody want to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Bob Coven Remax team.
Yeah. Got the logo on today. Yeah, Remax Team Realtors. We are located right in the Cloverleaf. We are at the roundabout. So if you do a little roundabout drive that everybody in Johnstown loved so much when it was put in,
Mhm.
we are located right there. So if you need to see me, stop in there.
If you miss it, just circle around a couple.
Yeah, just circle around a few times. We have seen some people make a left there.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, don't know how, but people have made lefts there. And I know you guys use Rocket Mortgage. Nothing against them. I'm always a fan of local lenders.
Mhm.
So always check with your banks because again, local grants, local programs like that
Does make the
really
process
help
quicker.
home ownership. So reach out to a local lender and call me.
How can people find you?
Very easily. I think I'm the only Brooks in
John?
Johnstown, maybe, which is good and bad. I'm sure there's some young kids coming up, but I don't think they're old enough to sell houses. So
Not yet.
find me on Facebook, Brooks Lohr Realtor. Find me on Google. My cell phone is 814-341-9807. And since I advertise that PA Law, I have to advertise my office line as well. So 814-262-7653, extension 105.
Thank you very much for coming on. Again, this is Small Town Johnstown. I'm Nick.
Jenny?
And this is Brooks,
Thanks
our
for having me,
realtor.
guys.
You too. Thank you for coming on.